Hey, welcome back. Let's talk for a minute about how science works. Ooh, this is gonna be fun. So we start by generating kind of a vague idea of a research question we might have. Like, do face masks actually prevent the spread of viral diseases? Seems kind of relevant, doesn't it? And then we go out and we see what other people have found. Why? Because we don't want to reinvent the wheel. And there are things other people have discovered that will guide our own study. And only after we have immersed ourselves in the existing literature should we even begin to do our own study. But how in the world do you find out what other people have found? Well, here is what you don't do. Read blogs, read product labels, read news sites, watch YouTube videos. You go straight to the source, the scientific articles. And this is where scientists summarize and report their findings from the studies that they have done. How in the world do you find those? Boy, that wise student is a good question. I have 3 favored sources for finding scientific articles: Web of Science, psycinfo, and Google Scholar. So what is the Web of Science?
Web of Science!
Y'all catch that Bill Nye reference? Let's say you're brand new to an area. You don't even know where to begin. You have no idea what other scholars know. And there are theories and facts in this area of research that other people know that you don't. There are papers that everybody who's anybody cites. So how do you make sure you find those papers? That's where Web of Science comes in. It helps us to find the most relevant articles by finding those which are most heavily cited. So presumably, if we find the article that is most cited, we find the article that everybody knows and everybody thinks is important. For Web of Science, we're going to begin at Rowan's website. If you are not a Rowan student, obviously you're going to access Web of Science differently. I just can't tell you how you're going to do that. But if you are a Rowan student, you're going to go to lib.rowan.edu/Campbell. And then you will click on Database Finder. And it will give you this alphabetical listing. And so you will go to W and then scroll down until you find Web of Science. The Web of Science. And then, of course, for my students, you'll click on Rowan University. And then once you get here, you're going to type in your password. So, of course, mine is Harry Potter. Password, I love statistics. And then at that point, you are in. Yay! Okay, so what we're going to do is we're just going to type in a search term. So for us, I think we're going to use the example of, let's say, face masks. And then we will do a search. Okay, and then at this point, it presents you lots and lots of information. We're going to use a tool that will help us figure out which of these articles are the most important. So to do that, I'm going to click on the top right that says Create Citation Report. So once we get here, this tells you this top information isn't going to be very useful to us. It just tells you the number of times all these articles have been cited, which isn't very helpful. But instead, if we scroll down to here, what it does is it gives us a list of articles that have this particular search term being used, and it is already sorted by total number of citations. So it looks like Surviving Sepsis Campaign, International Guidelines for Management of Severe Sepsis and Septic Shock. So unfortunately, what this does is it sorts it by the total. And so if there's an article that's been around since the 1950s, it's had a lot more time to gather citations than an article that's only been around for a couple years. So we can restrict this to make it a little more fair, and we want things to be a little more current. And so maybe we'll say, give me articles from 2010 to 2020. And that narrows down our list to over 4,000. But now we are getting a little more helpful. And look at that, that Surviving Sepsis Campaign is still the number one article, obviously, because it was published in 2012. And so at this point, I might say, oh, shoot, I didn't specify my search terms very well. So you might want to go back to search here. And maybe instead of face masks, we'll do N95. And then instead of topic, maybe I will instead say it has to have the term N95 in the title. And so that gives me now 9 results, which is great. And so now I can go again to my create citation report and then identify which of these articles is the most heavily cited. And oh dear, not many times at all. But N95 face mask for prevention of bird flu virus, an appraisal of nanostructure and implications for infectious disease. That sounds like it might be relevant. But that's the basic idea behind Web of Science. It's particularly relevant when you have lots and lots of articles. With that, though, we'll talk about the next database. Second resource, psycinfo. So the advantage of psycinfo is that you can search with what we call Booleans. Those are statements like search for this term and this term, or maybe search for this term or this term, or search for this term and not this term. And when we use Booleans, it's easy to narrow down our list of results from thousands to only the dozens or whatever that are relevant to our study. Now we get to use psycinfo. So we're gonna go back to this other tab that we had open that allows us to open the different databases, and we're gonna go to P, and then we're gonna scroll toward the bottom and look for psycinfo. And look at that, it says popular, so you know you're on the right track. It's popular. Although my mom always told me growing up to never go with what was popular, because then you'll get in trouble. All right, so now we are in. So now we have this opportunity to do some searches. And what I love about psycinfo is it allows you to use these Booleans here, as we call them. So, for example, let's say we want to look at face masks. And we want that to be in the title. Let's see, where is title? Document title, right there. But they might not use the word face mask. Instead, they might use the word N95. And so then we can add or. So it either needs to have face masks in the title or N95 in the title. And I'm actually going to add a row because I don't know if there's going to be a dash between N and 95. So I'm just going to do or N space 95, I guess. And I don't know, it may be that psycinfo is smart enough that it just kind of ignores the dash, but I'm gonna go ahead and put that in there anyway. So I'm gonna look at the document title and then search. Okay, so we have 40 results, which is actually, when I'm using psycinfo, you know, it's not cool to have like tens of thousands of results. Nor is it cool to have 1,000 sometimes. It's nice to get a narrow list of results. But let's go ahead and read some of these titles and see if they are relevant. So, understanding face mask use to prevent coronavirus and other illnesses. Oh, that seems relevant. Development of a multi-dimensional face mask perceptions scale. Okay, so that's oh, that's right. We're searching within a psychology journal, so that's probably why it's a limited number. So this is more about like people's perception of those. So I'm going to go ahead and click that because maybe that's what my research project is about. So supreme laryngeal mask airway versus face mask during neonatal resuscitation, a randomized control trial. Probably not what I'm looking for, so I'm not going to click on that. Japan, the face mask and the mask-like faces. Under the face mask, racial, ethnic minorities, student athletes, and mental health use. Risk, ritual, and health responsibilities. Japan's safety blanket of surgical face mask wearing. Okay, so we got a lot of articles that I think are interesting, and once you click on one of these, then what that does is that saves that to a folder that you can later look at. But after doing this, I'm realizing, you know, what I'm really wanting is, one of the search terms I'm missing is like disease transmission or something like that. So I'm going to modify my search. And I'm going to add a row that says, and I'm going to look at, I guess, just virus. And then go ahead and search. And once I search, notice it kind of gives you some keywords up here about how you can search for these sorts of things. And so it is looking for face mask or N95 and virus. And what I really want to do, and here's something that I would recommend doing, is this isn't quite what we're looking for. I don't exactly know how this is going to search for things and where the and is going to come in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put an open parentheses over here and a closed parentheses over here to specify that this is one condition that must be met, that it needs to have one of these terms, and then once it selects articles with one of those terms, then it has to also have the term virus. If instead I were to do something like that, I guess, then it would force, or I would be telling it that you have to find articles that have this specific title, N95 and virus, or it would have N95, or it would have face mask. So if there was an article that had face mask but no virus, it wouldn't show up. So hopefully that makes sense. So that's why I wanted to put the parentheses over here. So first meet the condition that it has one of those face mask terms, and then once you meet that condition, make sure that it has the term virus in it. And that brings us down to 2 results. So who is that masked person that used to face masks in Mexico City public transportation during the influenza outbreak? So that sounds interesting. Again, I'm kind of looking at factors. Again, I'm forming this research project as I go because I'm totally making this up. But I'm trying to consider psychological factors that affect people's use of face masks. So that looks good. Now, physical distancing, face masks, and eye protection to prevent person-to-person transmission of a systematic review and meta-analysis. Okay, that'll be awesome. So a systematic review and meta-analysis, those are kind of golden. That you really want those sorts of articles, because what they do is they review all the literature. So again, if you're brand new to an area, Web of Science is great. And some of those most cited articles are going to be systematic reviews and meta-analyses. And so these systematic reviews and meta-analyses, again, will kind of help you get caught up very quickly in the research that has been done. Okay, so now we have selected our 3 articles, and notice there's this button right here that says 3 selected items. And so normally what I do is I click on an article that I find relevant, and then at the end what I do is I click on an article if the title seems relevant. And if the title seems relevant, then I go to my narrowed list and then start reading the details in the abstract and that sort of thing. And so you might click on this and show abstract, and then you can read the abstract here. And you could do that for all the other ones and that sort of thing. But it sounds like, let's just pretend I did that. I read those and said, wow, this is exactly what I need. And then what you would do is you would go to, you can look at all the different save options up here. So you can cite these, which will just give you the citations for them. But we actually want them. So you could either email them, or there is PDF. Hopefully, a lot of these articles have the PDFs included. If not, then you may end up having to go to, so there's this button right here that says get it, check for full text, and then if you click on that, then it will take you to the library's website where it says whether it's available, and this says it's available online, so of course you could click on that and get the PDF and that sort of thing. And then some of the other ones have this get full text link.
So that's the basics of psycinfo, but it does have some disadvantages. You might not be searching for the right terminology. So maybe you said N95 instead of facial masks or something. Or maybe you use viral transmission instead of viral disease. And that's a limitation, and how we get over that limitation is by finding a Rosetta Stone. What is a Rosetta Stone? Well, historically it was a stone that was broken off of a larger stone that contained 3 inscriptions in it, in 3 different languages. One of those languages was known. So because scientists could translate the one language, they were able to figure out what the other 2 languages said. That became extremely instrumental in being able to translate Egyptian scripts and that sort of thing. But metaphorically speaking, a Rosetta Stone is a device or a resource that we use to unlock information that was previously hidden. So in this instance, we might not know the correct search terms to find, but what we are looking for is we are looking for that one Rosetta Stone article, or one article that is extremely relevant to our project that anybody who does research in that area will cite that paper. And once you find that paper, that is where Google Scholar really shines. Because Google Scholar can help us find articles that are relevant to that specific article. We have 3 resources we could use both within Google Scholar as well as in other places. One is the citations in the article itself. That article is citing other people who do research in a very relevant area. So maybe we ought to be looking at their citations. But we can also, in Google Scholar, do what's called reverse citations. Reverse citations means that we can find those articles that have cited your Rosetta Stone. Isn't that amazing?
Well, that's about as slick as snot down a water slide.
And then anybody who has published anything since that one article will have to cite that article. And so you can make sure you're up to date by finding every single person who has cited that article. But sometimes the number of people who have cited that article are in the thousands, and they might not even be relevant to your research project. So that's where the third resource comes in. And that is the ability to search within the article. Once you have your list of articles, you can then search within that list of articles, which I'm gonna show you how to do right now.
Okay, now we've got our 3 articles, but let's just say, just for fun, that this article right here, who is that masked person, the use of face masks in Mexico City, blah, 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 blah. Let's say that becomes our Rosetta Stone, that this article right here is the article that is super ridiculously relevant to our research project. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just, I guess I'll just click on it. And then we could look at the references right here to get kind of the other important articles we might use. But instead what I'm gonna do is I'm just going to copy this. So I highlighted it, and then on my Mac I'm hitting Apple C. If you're on a PC, you can do Control C, or you can go to Edit and Copy. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna open up a new tab here and go to scholar.google.com. And this has a simpler interface than the other articles that we've looked at. And so what I'm going to do is I'm gonna click in this box, and then you could right click, so you could do Command V, or you go to Edit, Paste, and then Search. And then what do you know? The very first article listed is, of course, the article that we're looking for. And so you could just click on this right here, and it will take you, so I'm gonna do that in a new tab. So if I click on that, it will take you to a place where you can download the PDF, and that's great. So sometimes if you're in psycinfo, it may be hard to get the PDF, but Google Scholar might be easier. But really, the thing that I'm looking for is right here. It says cited by 37. And that right there is what I want to see. So if I click on that, these are all 37 articles that have ever cited this one. And so again, if you are a who's who in the face mask wearing of psychological perception of face masks, then this is the article that you would cite. By the way, I just randomly decided that. I don't know if that's actually true, but let's say this is the article. Well, if this is the who's who of articles, then we certainly want to find anybody who has cited that article. And so fortunately for us, or for this example, that gives us 37 results. It's not going to be that hard to go through all 37 results and winnow that down to the ones that we want. But let's say that you had thousands that showed up. So now what you can do is you could actually, and maybe as you're reading through these, you can say, oh, you know, like, well, I guess we'll just read a couple of these. The role of public trust during pandemics. Ooh, that's a good term, trust. I definitely want to include articles that have the word trust in it. And so what you can do is you can type in trust here, but if you were to just search, in fact, I'll show you, don't do it, but if I were to do it, it would now go from 40 results or whatever that was to 3.8 million results. We don't want that. We don't want to do a new search. We want to search within citing articles. And so now we're going to write trust. And look at that, we went from 37, I think it was, down to 14. And so now maybe these 14 articles, a big chunk of these articles are going to be some of the ones that make it into our final paper.
So that concludes my extremely brief summary of the resources that I use when I'm looking at articles. And obviously, the information that I've given you is probably not going to be enough that you're going to be able to find every single article that you ever need. But I hope I've given you a jumping point that you can find enough information for yourself and figure out the rest on your own. So with that, good luck finding your articles, and we'll see you next time.